I kind of know most of your story, but so first of all, I'm a little rusty. I haven't recorded a fourth node in probably a year and a half.
By the way, can I just say, fourth node is an incredible. Everyone needs to listen to it. I'm actually a little sad that it's gone. You need to bring it back.
We have a few more we need to do.
Okay, yeah, do more of those. But the legends that you interviewed, and some have now even passed away. Am I right?
Yeah, Bruce Bastian is one we got before he passed.
Who was a legend, and it's just so incredible. Everyone needs to listen to that. Like, that is an incredible podcast if you want to learn about Utah's tech history.
Yeah, it was fun to do. It was a passion project for years, but it's where I gained an appreciation for people like you who do this for like a living, like consistently. It's hard to come up with content and interesting questions, and every guest can be a little differently. And I feel like I got pretty good at it, but I'm a little rusty. So
no, I loved it.
We'll see if I can do a decent job here. But to start, you're from Utah, like me.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of times big on entrepreneurs and a lot of well-known people did not grow up here. They came here because of BYU or something. And so I'm always interested to hear of people who grew up like me, like with Rich Bangerter as the governor, and like when Carl and John were here. So like I grew up in South Jordan, South Jordan Elementary, being high school. I think you're Spanish Fork.
Spanish Fork.
So maybe let's just start there. Like just your background, growing up here, what kind of environment you grew up in, and just like kind of how that put you on the trajectory of life.
Yeah, it's I grew up in Spanish Fork, which was a farm town.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it wasn't uncommon to see people riding horses down Main Street.
Yeah.
Like, and it still is. Like, it has a rodeo, it's where a big rodeo, Fiesta Days rodeo is. And that was always a big part of our lives. It's like a farm and cowboy town. And there's still a lot of farmers and cowboys down there. But it's also, like, going to be bigger than Provo in 10 years. Like, the growth of it is wild. Mm. And to watch that growth from, like, just fields, like where we are today with Lehigh, which is kind of a similar story, it has been crazy. But, yeah, I grew up in Spanish Fork. I actually, when I was born, I was born in Provo Hospital, and I was immediately put into foster care.
I did not know
that. Yeah. So because my mom, my biological mom, she'd been diagnosed with schizophrenia, and I think there was some drug use there. And my biological dad, as the story goes, he was institutionalized for alcoholism, which I don't even know if that's still a thing that you do, but
yeah.
And so I was put into foster care with my older brother. I have an older brother who's 2 years older than me. And we lived with a woman named Olive Clayson. We called her Grandma Olive for 3 to 4 years in Spanish Fork, Utah.
Okay.
And I don't know how long actually, but it was a few years.
Okay.
Because there's pictures of
Do you have
me
any
with, like,
memories of it?
No, not really.
Yeah.
Not really. I've seen pictures of me at her house, but I don't have like tons of memories. And then we were adopted by Charles and Patty Betts, my parents.
Okay.
Who also lived in Spanish Fork. And so, yeah, I grew up in Spanish Fork. But, yeah, I was adopted. I was put into foster care. And my brother remembers it far more than I do because he is 2 years older than I am. And he can, like, remember, like, some details of, like, living with Grandma Olive and even, like, our biological mom and stuff. But we don't actually have the same biological dad, but we had the same biological mom. And so, fortunately, like, we always were together.
Yeah, I think this Entrata thing's just a front for me to work on the foster care system. Like, first of all, I didn't know that. And I've known you for 10 years. I did not know that. It's lucky you guys got to stay together, I found.
Oh, yes. Unbelievable.
And it's lucky you went from one home to adoption that worked out. Like, that's super fortunate. Like, that's really interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah, it turns out that's quite rare. I actually have other biological siblings that I've met when I became an adult.
Okay. Like through 23andMe and stuff, or have you like connected with your biological?
I met my biological mom when I was 14 years old at Sizzler in Provo, Utah. That's where I met her.
Right.
And I can't remember exactly what spurred that. I want to say maybe my older brother went to our parents and said, we want to meet our biological mom.
Okay.
And I remember we had to go to therapy for a couple months leading up to it to make
Okay.
sure we were ready or
Interesting.
something. I don't
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah.
something like that.
Interesting.
And so we did that, and then we met her at Sizzler, and she was awesome. Yeah, she was incredible. It was actually, she'd been through a very, very hard life.
Yeah.
But the way I started to view it after that, because when you're adopted, you feel like you know, like you weren't good enough, or they didn't want you. Like that's how I remember, like you said, like you didn't know, and we've known each other for like over a decade. My brother growing up always said, just try not to act like you're adopted. And I was always
really?
like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it was kind of like this little bit of shame. Like we'd been like given up or something, like somebody didn't want us.
Yeah.
Or something like that. And so, but when I met her, and as we built a relationship with her, and we'd go hang out with her and her new husband and stuff, and she was never doing extremely well. She struggled with a lot of things throughout her life. But I realized like what she'd actually done is given us a chance, right?
Yeah.
And I that's kind of where I talk about chances a lot, and that's kind of where that comes from, is that my biological mom kind of gave us a chance. And in fact, like when she died, because she passed away, we were there. Me and my brother were there again at the Provo Hospital, and that was the last thing I said to her, sir, was thanks for the chance.
Wow.
Yeah. So that kind of shaped my experience, like being adopted. Growing up in Spanish Fork, which really was this kind of like farm, baseball. Baseball was huge. I think it was like we had more baseball fields per capita than anywhere else. Like we're always winning state and stuff. I wasn't good, so I played basketball because everybody played baseball. But wrestling, things like that. But growing up in that environment, like to be honest with you, I didn't even know who our governor was.
Yeah.
You know, I never like that.
That
wasn't even
not.
Yeah, like I wasn't connected into anything Utah. Like I would spend like hours outside throwing like a baseball against like our garage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like, this is wild. Life is wild. And we had a couple years after we were adopted, my parents adopted my sister, Jessica. And I believe they did that through LDS when they had their adoption. I don't think we were through that.
Okay.
And then my parents had 4 children of their own after that.
Oh, wow.
So we're a family of 7.
Okay.
And my dad was a janitor, and my mom was a preschool teacher. She taught preschool out of the basement of our house. So we were like poor, like we were poor, whatever that version of poor was in that. And you know, we'd spend all day outside and like all that, you know, like we would never, like I can't even remember thinking of anything about like the broader world.
The 80s
beyond beyond just like who my friends were down the block and that type of stuff.
It's interesting because the reason I wanted to know that you blog a lot, you write a lot, and one thing I've always enjoyed about you, and I feel a similar way, like I've just done a lot of thinking about how things that happened to me growing up, like how they made me this version of myself. And you do the same. Like you've written about throwing baseballs, and you recently written about the stove that you thought was going to be super awesome. Like, what is it that causes? You know, where do you think that comes from inside you? Is it something you like think about a lot? Is it something like you've gone through therapy to like identify some of those things? Because that's kind of the same process I've kind of gone through over the last few years.
I don't know. So I don't do therapy. I probably should. I've tried it. Obviously, I had to do it before I met my biological mom, and there's been like periods of my life, but it's never stuck for me. The thing that stuck for me that has helped me work through my mental health and my issues is writing. It is like sitting down and writing about these experiences. And I've written so much, and I've published so little of it, actually. Like,
oh, really?
I'm never like sure. Like if sometimes I'll like the Dutch oven story or the cast iron oven story. Well, I don't know if this resonates with anybody. This is kind of like, but this happened to me, and it's kind of interesting. So the way I process things is writing. I don't know why, but I've always thought of myself as a writer more than anything else. Like that's what I wanted to be. Like when I graduated from high school, I wanted to be a writer. I didn't know what that meant. I still don't know what that means, like how to like make a career out of being a writer. But that's what I went to UVU, studied journalism, like because like I just wanted to do that. All my heroes were writers, and I had like some crazy hero like Hunter S. Thompson and Dostoevsky and Tolstoy, and like obviously all the Russian, not and Hemingway, like these like very like masculine writers, you know, like that's who I wanted to be. And yeah, that's what I went to school for, man.
There is something really therapeutic about writing.
Yes.
And just getting stuff out of your brain, and especially like deep, complex feelings or emotions. And sometimes writing helps you decide if they're real or not.
Yeah.
Or if it's something you made up. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, those who journal, I don't know if you journal. I guess I kind of do a form of journaling, but I think it's super healthy. I think that's a beautiful way to process things.
Okay, so Spanish Fork, I think when I met you, you were still doing iZeni and Beehive Startups, right? So why don't you what were those? I think those were the first couple of things you did at a school.
So I served an LDS mission in Seattle, Washington, and I hurt my back playing basketball on a P day, which is like preparation day for those who don't know. And I got sent home for six to 8 weeks. To do physical therapy. As soon as I got home, I was like, I'm not going back.
that's tough going back.
I was like, what are we talking about? I'm not going back to Seattle. And so for better or worse, I did not go back. I almost immediately got married to my high school sweetheart. And we almost immediately, 10 months after our marriage, had our first kid. And so I had to start thinking about responsibility at a pretty young age. I'm pretty sure I was 19 still when all of that happened.
Wow.
And because I was in the MTC for my 19th birthday.
Okay.
And so did all that, and then I had to decide like, hey, okay, how are you going to make money? Because at the time I was just managing in Gandolfo's Deli in Spanish Fork, Utah.
You've also written about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Particularly, I wrote about it because Ryan Westwood, who is the CEO of Fullcast, was the manager of the Springville, right next door, Gandolfo's Deli, and that's actually how we've known each. So we've known each other for over 20 years through that. And so your options back then, if you were a kid like me, who like my parents didn't have any sort of network or any connections, there's no such thing as internship. I'm pretty sure I was the first person in my family to go to college. That's no longer true, but I was the first at the time. And like none of this, and we never talked once about college or career. My entire childhood. It wasn't even a thing that was discussed. It's like, you'll figure it out. Like, whatever. Like, it wasn't even discussed. And so my options there were like basically like work at a call center, like Convergys in Orem. And so I did that for a minute, hated it. But the healthcare was really good. You know what I mean? And we were about to have a baby. And then because I'd ran a Gandolfo's Deli, I bought a deli on Center Street in Provo called Hickory Kiss that I then named Clint's Deli.
Really? I didn't know this either. Okay.
And the only way I was able to do that is in Spanish Fork. There were 2 Hickory Kiss in the world. The main one was in Spanish Fork, and then they had like this one on Center Street in Provo. And we knew the owners of this Spanish Fork one. And I went to them and I was like, I hate doing this call center. And I thought I could run a deli because I'd done Gandolfo's or whatever. And I was like, I don't have any money, but I'll pay you. I just pulled up like a Word document, wrote like a legal agreement. Probably not binding to this day. I probably never actually owned this deli because I wrote the document. And I was like, I'll pay you $500 a month or something. I can't remember what it was of like the profits. And like, then I just ran this deli as I went through college. And then once college was over, sold the deli because I was terrible at it. And there was no reason for me to be running a deli anyways. And that's when I'd gone to school with Aaron Gunderson. There's a million Gundersons. But I went to school with Aaron Gunderson. And his 2 older brothers, Jordan and Gabe, were running a software development firm called iZeni. And they needed someone who could kind of be like the business person. They're both like hardcore developers, and they built the first version of Weave. They built Divi, the first version of Divi. They came up with the name Divi.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's a lot of like really incredible history in iZeni.
I met you originally because I had just sold Allegiance. I think this is 2013, and I needed like a dev shop to work on some ideas. I actually think that's why we initially went to lunch.
I think it was.
Yeah, and I remember they built like some legit, like really springboarded a lot of real companies.
Yeah, they built Weave. For a long time, and the whole goal of iZeni was to build the initial product until you could transition to an in-house team.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the two big ones are probably Weave and Divi, but I know they've done some work for chat books. I mean, there's probably, in that era of tech companies, there's probably not too many who didn't at least go talk to them because they were known as kind of the people to do it.
Yeah, which kind of speaks to, back then it was still really hard to raise money.
Oh, impossible.
You couldn't just go raise $3 million and go hire an engineering team. You actually did kind of have to slow roll it with an outsourced dev shop. My first company, Silent Whistle, I did the same thing. I outsourced the first like 3 or 6 months to a dev shop because you didn't really have enough money to say, let's really go do this thing.
Yeah, it was hard. Like, the only VC that I remember was Gavin.
Mm-hmm. And they were tiny.
Who was super active with Kickstarter. And I remember, like, we were talking to him all the time because all of his companies were coming to us, to help. And then while I was at iZeni and we launched Beehive Startups, I remember Peak Ventures came, and which is now Album.
Yeah.
And then more and more money started to come, but it was hard back then. And you really did have to build something first.
Mm-hmm.
And we still maybe do. I'd love your opinion on that. But like Silicon Valley, you can go in with like a pitch deck and an idea. You know, you can just, and everybody gets accepted into YC now, which is really fascinating, right? Like
everybody's in YC.
And
now.
so like, but back then it was like impossible to get into YC.
Yeah.
I think Weave was the first Utah
Weave
company.
got in, and then I think Podium was in like a year later, and it was rare back then.
It was super rare and super important. Now you just got to be like, a Stanford grad and you're in or something. Like, I don't know. It's really weird.
Yeah, it does feel like 2021, it definitely got to where if you had a decent pitch deck, you could go raise at the 30 million pre. But I think the last few years have maybe been a little healthy to kind of self-crack back. We'll talk about Beehive Startups. So that was kind of probably your first foray into a big community type event.
Mm-hmm.
How did that start? What was it? I remember vaguely what Beehive Startup was, but I think it was kind of a big deal.
Yeah, so I was at iZeni, and we were sitting there, me, Gabe, and Jordan, and I studied journalism, and like I don't know, I'm not a big coder. I'm not gonna like go sit down and code Python or do all this type of stuff that they're doing, but I could get us like some attention and awareness if we just launched this whole separate thing. So my pitch to them was like, let's launch a blog. Called, and we put no thought into the name, just beehive-startups.com, spent $10 for that domain. And I'll just go around and interview all the top founders and CEOs in the state. And we'll write really great stories on what they're doing. And maybe some goodwill will come back to iZeni for that.
Right.
So it's kind of beautiful that the Gundersons took a chance on like something that's had nothing to do with their business, except for like, and I think it did help, obviously, with iZeni and that type of stuff. But it took a minute for that to kind of pay off for them. And I just went around, and so the first year it started as a blog. Nobody read it. I told the team to take Google Analytics off the site, or I'd stop doing it because nobody was reading it. It was like super depressing.
Yeah.
And then I kind of woke up a year and a half into it and realized that at least one person was reading each story, and that was who I was writing about. And randomly, we'd built this community all of a sudden of the top leaders in the state. It's how I met Ryan. It's how I met Josh. It's how I met Sconard. It's how I met so many of these people, right? Is by like writing these stories. And they started to push us to do more than just write stories. They wanted us to do events. They wanted us to do all these things. In fact, I can't even remember who it was, but some company sent Beehive Startups a $10,000 check and for sponsorship. And they made it out to Beehive Startups. And I called them and I said, Beehive Startups isn't a thing. It's just a blog. Like, it doesn't have a bank account. It's not a separate from iZeni in any way. And they're like, well, make it separate. Have its own bank account. We want you to do stuff. And that was kind of the impetus for us, like doing events. And then we did StartSLC, which is probably where Beehive Startups really kind of became well known in the state. It was probably the biggest tech event to happen in Utah at that time.
And what was remind me how it started. StartSLC. Now I've kind of forgot about StartSLC. What was it? What was the audience? Was that like there was a pitch competition? You had a bunch. It's very much focused on startups.
Yeah,
so.
very much on startups. Gavin Christensen was super helpful in that. I remember calling him and saying, "Hey, we should do a pitch competition. Let's get 25K from all the VCs." And we actually had a 250K pitch competition, which at the time was an enormous amount of money. Just an enormous amount of money. So that got some attention. I don't know if you remember this, but Zenefits had been kicked out of Utah that year.
Right. Yeah.
And we had kind of led the charge at Beehive Startups, like getting them back, just, writing a bunch of stuff. So we got Parker Conrad, the CEO of Zenefits, to come speak.
Okay. Yeah.
Ryan came and spoke. Sconard came and spoke. I don't know if Josh came and spoke, but there was a bunch of those guys who were still on the rise. Like, I don't know that Ryan was like super well. Our big featured speaker that year was Parker Conrad, the CEO of Zenefits.
Yeah, I just interviewed Ryan a few weeks ago, and he said he's like, 2016 is when Qualtrics kind of became a thing.
Yeah.
Pretty unknown before that.
Yeah.
So this would have been like, what, 2013, 14?
This would have been 15, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, so like right before, like it was clear like all of these guys were onto something, Sconard, Ryan, and Josh. Well, Josh, obviously. But it was clear that like kind of that group was doing something interesting, but none of them had hit. And they hadn't announced like their huge record-breaking raises yet.
Right.
And we put it on. The Gateway was completely empty. It was a ghost town. And we got the Gateway to give us all the empty stores at the Gateway, and just to put like little mini events in. And then the Depot, which is now a hotel, is where we had the main stage. And we packed the place. Like, and again, it was the biggest tech event up to that point, but it was still only like 1,500, 2,000 people. But the energy of that was crazy. It was just like, and it felt like we were all building it together because we were. Like everybody was helping putting the chairs in the right place and things like that. And I think that following that is where Beehive Startups really kind of took off. And it was following that actually that I started talking to Josh about Silicon Slopes too.
Okay. Do you remember who won the first pitch competition?
Oh, I do.
Is it like a real company? Did it do anything?
So I can't remember the name of the company, but they won and they sold 3 months later. And everybody who invested got double their return.
Perfect. Pick the right one.
It was crazy.
That's cool. Yeah, I was just curious.
So they put in 25, and I think they all got 50K back or something. It was something.
Okay. Cool.
It was something really weird like that. But
I like that. Okay. Okay. So I'm asking you questions I literally don't know answers to. So this is really interesting for me. StartSLC gets going. Beehive Startups is a real thing. What helped push that into what became Silicon Slopes? Because Silicon Slopes is it's about 10 years old, so it must have been that same time frame. And what kind of led you to say this actually should be a real thing and a nonprofit? And what was the impetus for that?
Well, Josh James probably started some version of Silicon Slopes in like 2000, right? Like he's owned the brand and pushed that initiative knowing, and he has this great story. By the way, we should build a statue to this guy. I just think there is no Silicon Slopes, obviously no Silicon Slopes organization without him, but maybe no tech community as we know it today without him.
He did push it. Like I remember him sending out that big poster that said Silicon Slopes with logos for everyone. That was probably 2007.
Yeah. He was sending out the calendars and stuff like that.
All on Omniture's dime.
He started it inside of Omniture. And then when he sold Omniture, Adobe actually bought Silicon Slopes. So there was a time when Adobe owned Silicon Slopes.
Oh, okay.
Josh, when he left Adobe and started Domo, pulled Silicon Slopes with him.
Okay.
And so he ran Silicon Slopes out of Domo, and they were doing like some blogging, and they were doing the calendar. And actually around the same time that we did StartSLC, Silicon Slopes under Josh's leadership and Jordan Burke, who I think was a Domo employee who was running it, they did the first Utah Tech Week. Okay. So the first Utah Tech Week, I think, actually happened before StartSLC. I think there was Utah Tech Week, and then a couple months later, StartSLC happened.
And I don't know if this is the right opinion, but from my memory, I'd say the initial probably motivation for Josh was more marketing. Like, let's make Utah look more appealing and a better growth story to the Bay Area.
Well, he has this great story of like, he's Josh James. He's built Omniture. he goes, he's in Silicon Valley, goes up to an investor, I think to pitch Domo or something, and they're super interested in it. And then they ask where he's from. He says Utah, and the investor just walks away.
Yeah. It
Right?
used to be like that.
Yeah, and so he wanted to be able to build a tech ecosystem in Utah without having to be in Silicon Valley, and he's the first to prove that you could get a Silicon Valley exit in Utah.
And he's done it. Like I was just talking to someone last week. My first 2 or 3 companies, I was in the Bay Area every week. I was on Sand Hill Road. I've stayed in every hotel in Menlo and Palo Alto. And someone asked me recently, I'm like, I haven't even been to the Bay Area since 2019.
I was thinking about that too.
They
yeah,
come here
always
now.
Have to go there.
They come here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was like thinking back 15, 20 years ago, never would you get like an Excel or an IVP or a Silver Lake to come and fly to meet your company.
Yeah.
Never.
No. No. Yeah, and Josh is responsible for that. And so we did StartSLC. He did Utah Tech Week. He and I started talking. At the time, I had Ryan and Sconard engaged in Beehive Startups. And so they were and I was trying to form, like, again, it wasn't an entity. It was like an LLC. Like Josh had like put some thought into his name and brand, like in the Josh thing. I'd put no thought into Beehive Startups. I don't even know if I really liked the name, but I just was wanting to do something and to push things forward. And so me, Ryan, and Sconard were kind of doing Beehive Startups, and Josh and Dave Elkington were kind of doing Silicon Slopes. And this is when Inside Sales was big and Elkington was doing his thing. And Josh and I started talking, like, what if we put these two things together? What if we created a whole new 501c3 nonprofit? What if these 5 people were the board of that? Everybody has to put in some money to get it going. And we all unite underneath the Silicon Slopes banner, and we build a summit, and, we build like a lot of these things that kind of put Utah on the map. And the whole impetus behind Silicon Slopes is like to gain awareness, both internally, but especially externally, that there was a tech community, a thriving tech community in the state of Utah, to get talent. We needed more talent.
Yeah.
Particularly like a CFO was impossible back then. Even a CMO was probably pretty hard.
Yeah.
Sales wasn't hard, but any of those other C-suite people, that was pretty hard back then to get. And then we wanted more capital. Like that was kind of the impetus. And the first initiative was, let's build a world-class tech summit that just happens to be in Utah. And so we put that together. It was incredible. Josh has been incredible. Like he kind of like gave, like, it's hard to overstate, like Silicon Slopes is his baby, and he gave it to this nonprofit. When he brought all these other leaders in as equals, right? To, all right, let's keep carrying the torch together, right? And obviously we put I think the name of the nonprofit is actually Beehive Startups Nonprofit Corporation, because he had his own Silicon Slopes thing that he was still trying to, like, I think we needed to use the Beehive Startup stuff. But so we everybody put stuff in, but really, like, that guy had been pushing on some version of this for 15 years, and the timing was perfect, where he got a bunch of really great leaders, specifically Ryan, Sconard, and Dave, who also wanted to put in and rally behind that thing. And that was beautiful. Like having like the top kind of like CEOs at that time all in a room together and not talking about anything other than how do you grow the ecosystem. Yeah. Where they compete for everything, talent, capital, attention, all that type of stuff. But they would come in here and they just talk about, all right, how do we make Summit awesome? And my company will give this, and my company will give this. And I don't know that would happen anywhere else in the world. Yeah. And it's cool to look back and say mission accomplished. Yeah. Like the talent pool increased, funding everywhere. The kind of stigma, like we said we wanted people to know that there's a growing, healthy ecosystem here. That's well known worldwide now. Yeah. And the summit was successful. The weird part, and I'm sure you'll get to this, but the weird part for me as the CEO of the organization is, like, what do you do when it's mission accomplished? I wanted to get to that, because mission accomplished kind of happened, and then those guys all kind of had their various exits. Yeah. Like, I think a couple of them are still kind of involved, but like it's not like that anymore. No, we used to go Ryan's busy running the Jazz. Yeah, we used to go to Ryan's house, spend all night, and we'd all go to work in the morning. They all had companies to run, and so the only time they could do it is night. We'd go to Ryan's house, or we'd go to Josh's house, or we'd come here, or we'd go to, whatever. and they'd spend a ton of time on it. And yeah, they can't do that anymore.
So, how has your thought process kind of evolved, or tell us about it over the last couple of years? Because there's probably been times, and I don't, you know, you and I had a lot of private discussions. There probably was times where it was like, has it served its purpose? Like, check, and everybody just kind of split up and go their separate ways. There's probably times where like it felt like that might be the right decision. Or alternative, how do we kind of create a new focus, new strategy, find new people who can help and keep going? How have you thought through that over the last few years?
Well, the unfortunate thing for us is mission accomplished happened when Zuckerberg stood on stage.
Is that 2019?
Like that was 2020.
2020.
Right before it was January 2020, and the pandemic would hit in March.
Yep.
And that was mission accomplished for us. Biggest 30,000 people came to the summit that year, all at the Salt Palace. Like we hosted the gubernatorial debate, the largest governor's debate.
Oh, that's right.
In history. Like like we'd done it. All three of those things have been checked off. And in a normal cycle of running an organization like this, or in leading something like this, you would, after that, be like, what do we do?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And now that it's accomplished, like, should we only focus on something? What do we do? COVID hits and changes everything. So COVID gave us like 3 years of distraction. COVID completely changed this organization. We went from holding events here every single day to holding no in-person events. We started doing Zoom town halls with all the leaders about what was happening, trying to help the state manage all this stuff, and really kind of figuring out, like, well, what does anybody do? Forget Silicon Slopes. Like, how do we all survive? And so COVID couldn't have come at a worse time for our organization, because the mission had been accomplished, and then we got distracted for 2, maybe 3 years, right? And then we come out of that, and it's like, well, mission was accomplished. So now, like, what do we do? Where do we fit in here? Events are no longer, some sort of differentiator, or everybody can do them. Anybody can do them. That's great. So we're not going to be the only ones doing events anymore. Anybody can, start a blog or a Substack and talk about this community. Like, where does Silicon Slopes fit into this? And, you've kind of been a part of these discussions with the board, but like for us, it's like, well, what we're really uniquely qualified to do is convene, use this megaphone that has been built, and curate connections with the leaders and help mentor and push the next generation of leaders, right?
Yeah.
And so that's where we're going. Like, there was a time in Silicon Slopes' history, not too long ago, especially during COVID, where I felt Silicon Slopes had to do everything.
Yeah.
Like, if the tech community in Utah needed something done, I felt like, and probably wrongly, but I felt like there was this weight of responsibility on my shoulders to make that happen. I no longer feel that.
Yeah.
I feel like this community has matured to the point where there's incredible leaders and organizations doing incredible things that Silicon Slopes doesn't have to do. And now we get to focus on what we do best. And the focusing of this organization into a few things that we do really well, mostly around harnessing that megaphone, bringing the community together, convening leaders, and kind of, that whole apparatus. That's kind of where we'll focus, and we'll kind of leave everything else to everyone else, because the community's matured. You don't need orgs like who we were in 2015 forever.
Yeah. It's been interesting to watch the last few years. There's times I've had empathy for you, and I would think of the Batman quote of, you either die the hero or live long enough to become the villain. And because I think Silicon Slopes went in so many directions and did so many things, you just open yourself up to getting darts thrown at you. You know what I mean? I just have a lot of empathy and appreciation for everything that you've gone through, especially the last 4 or 5 years, when everybody thinks they have their own megaphone. Because I love how you've narrowed down the vision to what this organization to me did was rallied the community together. And I do feel like we're losing that. Like, as the last 3-4 years have happened, not just in Utah, but humanity is losing community, and we're all throwing darts at each other all the time.
Yeah.
And just the last couple of events we've done here with Silicon Slopes, there's like that spark coming back. Like, we had an event up at Traeger a month ago, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
There's Mark Newman. I haven't seen him in years. And oh my gosh, Brad Rencher. I haven't seen him in years. And like, it felt like, okay, it's time to bring this community back
Yeah,
together.
it's back to our roots
Mhm.
at this point after we, and by the way, a lot has happened. It's not just Silicon Slopes or
Mhm.
COVID. Ryan's oldest company,
Mhm.
Pluralsight's not even in Utah anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Inside sales, I don't know
Think
what
it's
it
gone.
is. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's gone. And Dave's, all these guys are still around, but they're all doing it. Like Ryan owns the Jazz now and
Mhm.
the hockey team, and he's building like 2 cities in this state, and like he's like the president of Utah. Like all of these, like kind of like like there's a lot that's happened.
Mhm.
And kind of started in here and kind of grew out of this that we could just hang up our hats and be proud of. Like,
Mhm.
well, look what was the starter for this. And if I thought we didn't have a place in the ecosystem, I would do that.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I've like fallen in and out of love with this
Yeah.
organization or me being the leader of it at least, a number of times.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's only the past year or two where I've really felt like, no, we should get it back to its roots
Mhm.
because that's what's missing in this community. I remember there was a VC, and VCs always have this really interesting relationship with an organization like Silicon Slopes, right?
Mhm.
On one hand, it's really great for VCs because it brings attention, awareness, and it can promote the companies they invest. On the other hand, it can bring the Sequoias,
Yeah.
the
It brings competition. Yep.
Excels, and
Mhm.
some of the founders of Silicon Slopes can launch their own funds,
Mhm.
all of this. So it brings like competition, and also like it makes it so in most startup communities, VCs are at the core. They kind of lead the events. They kind of lead. They're kind of the megaphone and the convening. Like if you think of like these Techstars communities or YC and all of these things, it's usually like a VC or an accelerator that does this. Utah is unique that it's founders who do it.
Mhm.
Founders are kind of at the center, which is the way I think it should be. Actually,
Yeah.
I think it's why it's been working so well. But I had a VC call me when they weren't like super happy with Silicon Slopes being at the center.
Mhm.
And they were like, there's going to come a time where all these conversations don't happen just at Silicon Slopes. And all that time exists right now. Like that's not our goal. Our goal isn't like to control any sort of conversation. Like go like we don't want to do everything.
Mhm.
And that tension is really interesting and something that I hope starts to, and not just VCs, but we do have like these silos. And my point to the VC is like, that's fine, but let's not like break off and just be fragmented and never talk to each other again.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
That's
Right.
the problem. Like, it's fine that conversations are had. They should, and they always have, by the way.
Mhm.
Like the only place you talk about tech is not like in Silicon Slopes offices,
Mhm.
right? And so like, but that's great. And there should be more events, and Silicon Slopes will support them, and more groups and all that type of stuff. Like, it almost killed me doing all of that anyways,
Mhm.
right? And so let's not have Silicon Slopes do that. But also let's not fragment to the point where we, you see all these other communities and all these other states, they become like enemies.
Right.
Right? It's
Right.
just like, not only are they not like working together closely, they're actively trying to like hurt each other.
Mhm.
And if we get there, and I think we've come close actually in Utah to
Mhm.
getting there, then we'll have lost the magic of this community, which isn't an organization. It isn't a group of people. It's that we don't try to kill each other,
Yeah.
but we try to lift each other up.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels like it's just the way our society is going now. It's so easy to focus on the negative and what's wrong and who's not doing what or what is unfair. And I don't know, just my personal mindset's really shifted the last 6 months or so. There's a lot of reason for hope, and there's probably a lot of reason to talk more about the hope. And it's helped my mindset identifying there's a lot of cool stuff going on. Like I've got a son graduating from college right now from the U, and I'm like, dude, like I started my career in '04. I missed the .com bubble. And like '04 to like 2012 was kind of lame. Like there wasn't a lot of funding. It wasn't really great. I wish I'd been born 10 years earlier. I'm like, all these young kids, you're starting your careers at the coolest time. You were starting your career in 1993.
Yeah.
Like, and Netscape was brand new. There's a lot of reasons for optimism and hope. Where do you find hope when you think about this community, when you think about the future of Silicon Slopes? Like, what has you fired up to keep doing this and pushing the positive message forward?
I think it's our ability to build things and build relationships and feed off each other in a way that no other place can. Right? Like, I think that is for me, and making sure that Utah remains what makes it Utah. And we shouldn't try. I wrote a piece about this. It's actually that cast iron oven piece. Like, we need to keep, like, Utah's peculiar, and we need to stop apologizing for it.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we actually should, like, embrace that. Like, we're not, although our name suggests otherwise, we are not trying to be Silicon Valley. We're trying to build our own ecosystem and our own version of what makes a great life. There was this trending thing, I don't know if you saw it, on X a couple months ago, around if you're not at working past 6 p.m., then you're not a real entrepreneur.
Yeah, hustle
I don't know
culture
if you saw
stuff.
that.
Yeah. There's the 996 thing going on.
Yeah. Like, somebody tweeted something out, I can't remember who it was, that nobody was at Kiln past 6. And that's just, that's why Utah will always remain a third-tier tech ecosystem. And I don't know why why I got involved in that, but because those never go super well for me. But I was like, what? That's great. That's what Utah is, right? And somebody sent, like, a scripture quote, like, kind of as, like, condemning it, like, like, and I'm like, no, that quote is why.
Yeah.
Like, this is a different community. This isn't Silicon Valley, right? And you can call us third tier, you can call us second tier, you can call us whatever you want, but there's no ecosystem like it. And why would we change it so that we can be more like Silicon Valley? Silicon Valley, if you don't work in tech in Silicon Valley, you've been priced out. You can't live in Silicon Valley, right?
Yeah.
They have all sorts of issues. Is it cool that they built Salesforce and Facebook? Yeah. Would it be cool if we built some version of that? Yeah, maybe. But there are a lot of, like, downsides to that too. And, like, let's have, like, an honest conversation about it. And, you know, because their whole thing is, like, Utah doesn't have great founders. The great founders are, like, up at 6 and going till midnight and killing themselves. And all that's great. Like, I think Elon Musk is cool. I know that he does that, right? I think what he does for humanity is really cool. But let's not emulate. Let's do our own thing. And so I think that's what gets me excited more than anything, is, like, the fact that we're different. We should embrace what makes us different. We should fix areas that are negative where we're different, for sure. But, like, why wouldn't we embrace that Utah's peculiar? Why wouldn't we embrace the fact that you can come build really successful companies and organizations and lives and be at your kids' dance recital same night? Like, why wouldn't we? That sounds awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I don't see that as a negative. I see that as, like, an enormous positive.
Right. Maybe last question. Let's say, so 10, 12 years I've known you. Let's say we do this 10, 12 years from now. What do you hope the next, and I don't know if you're still going to be at Silicon Slopes in 10 or 12 years, but what would you hope the next decade looks like for this organization, for you? Like, what are some of your goals, ambitions? What has you fired up?
I hope the organization gets to where it was in the early days, but at scale, which is what we need to achieve now, in terms of convening, leading conversations, not owning conversations, and helping Utah navigate what I think is going to be a pretty, really exciting, like you said, 10 years, but a challenging 10 years in a lot of respects. I think that AI will force everybody to be an entrepreneur. There probably won't be huge companies, you know, like really, really big ones. You see, like, the real estate, you know, there's a lot of empty office space and all that type of stuff, but we're still outputting incredible companies. And so there's something there, like, you can really do a lot more with a lot less now.
Yeah.
And that's great. It's also going to be really challenging. And how do you navigate, and how does Silicon Slopes lead on conversations around housing, on conversations around how do you keep Utah peculiar while also at the same time grow as one of the fastest states in the country? Like, that's a really hard challenge. There is a segment of this state that is not insignificant that would prefer there was no tech community in the state of Utah, right? Like, and by the way, they have some valid points.
Right.
You know, like, they're not entirely wrong. And how do we ensure that we maintain that balance and we don't just turn Utah into Silicon Valley or Austin or, you know, Boston or any of these things? Great places, by the way. Love all of those places. But how do we make it uniquely Utah? How do we make it so that our entrepreneurs can have really fulfilling careers, and everybody who works in the community and still go to their kids' basketball game at night. Like, why wouldn't we want that? You know, like,
Mm-hmm.
to me, like, that would be beautiful if Silicon Slopes could help whoever's the governor and the legislature over the next 10 years navigate these really, really big problems. There are real problems that come with success, right?
Yeah.
You hit like this plateau, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, look how amazing this tech community has been, these entrepreneurs have been for the community, all that type of stuff. And then it's like, well, my kids can't afford a house now
Mm-hmm.
when they graduate college. They still have to be on my insurance until they're 26.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, it's impossible to buy a house for less than $500,000. Like, and like, that's our fault too.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yep.
we bear some responsibility for that. And so how do you navigate kind of this interesting, and I think Silicon Slopes' role in that will be vital, which is why I think the org is necessary. I think if you've removed Silicon Slopes as an organization and its ability to convene and kind of help lead on those conversations, then I think we get the all-out war against each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where we're just slinging air. Everybody's only concerned about their own companies, their own interests, and there's no kind of convening power or organization that can look at, because, you know, like, a governor's not going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, a legislature's not going to do. They have their own things, but we can help them understand kind of where we're coming from, and we're the fastest growing sector in the state of Utah,
Yeah.
right? And there's over 200,000 people who work in this industry. The state's super small. There's only 3 million of us.
Mhm.
That's a huge chunk
Mm-hmm.
of this state that is in this industry, and to abdicate that responsibility to me would be the mistake. And so if 10 years from now we didn't abdicate it and we helped kind of lead a conversation there, I think that would be a win.
Cool. I have one quick follow-up. You mentioned getting back to convening, and I do think that's what Silicon Slopes is really good at. So Summit's the big thing. You've talked about it a couple times. There's a change coming next year that I'm actually really excited about, and maybe it's just worth spending a few times. That's probably not well known, so this is probably the best, forum
Yeah.
to actually kind of talk about what's changing and how, the last one at UVU, I think, was kind of like the point everyone was like, should we keep doing this thing? It wasn't super well attended. The venue was a little odd. It was like, has this run its course? But I think the focus and what you've got planned is really cool. So talk about that.
Well, that was what was fascinating. Is like, after 2020, like, we're never going to get 30,000. Nobody, not just us, is ever going to get 30,000 people to the Salt Palace for a tech conference like the one we put on in 2020. That's never going to happen again. Like, COVID completely changed that. Like, you don't go to see people do a fireside chat by the tens of thousands anymore. You just don't do it. Probably because these have become so much popular.
Yeah,
you can go
true.
listen to what Zuck, 3-hour interview of Zuck on Joe Rogan right now. Like, why would you go listen to me interviewing him on stage?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of kind of factors that go into that. And so those events will never be the same. And it was interesting coming out of that, we had to skip one, I think, or else we did it in the fall because we couldn't do it in January. And we went to the Delta Center. So ever since 2020, this summit has been like in this interesting, precarious position of like, what is this thing now?
Yeah.
Because we had as big of a name the following year in Tim Cook, but no, you don't get 30,000 people to it. That doesn't exist. That world doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, we need to kind of go away from that. And so what should it be? And for the last one we did at UVU, my choices were this. It was like, let's spend another $3 million, right? And go do the Delta Center thing again and get, like, we had the greatest speaking lineup ever. The one before UVU where we had Tony Robbins, Gary Vee, Reed Hastings, Elder Bednar. Like, it was just like top to bottom. I mean, the founder of WordPress, like, it was crazy. A Firm CEO, like, top to bottom, the greatest lineup we've ever had. The community's like response, and at the Delta Center, this beautiful venue, and like, it's like, we don't really care. There's podcasts where we can listen to all these guys, and like, what we care about is like, how are you going to connect with us? And so we had an option at the UVU year of like, do that again, and we kind of know the reaction it's going to be, or hold our powder for the 10th one. Like, let's do the UVU one, which had a lot of good to it. And was successful in its own way, particularly that we finally got to do one in Utah County, which I was excited about. And so it wasn't a total loss, but we don't have to spend $3 million to go to UVU, and we don't have to spend a whole year trying to execute on a model that we already know is broken.
Yeah.
So let's get through that year, and then let's start thinking about year 10, which is, so we've been thinking about year 10 for 2 years.
Yeah.
And the whole idea behind it, we knew Sundance was going to leave. We knew that Salt Lake was going to be undergoing this kind of grand transformation. It's going to be a whole different city in 5 years, right?
Yeah.
Thanks to everything Ryan and Larry H. Miller and all those people are doing. So we knew we'd end up there, and we'd end up there permanently. We knew that we would play some sort of role in whatever replaced Sundance, right? And we knew that tech conferences aren't ever going to bring 20, 30,000 people out again.
Yeah.
Community tech. Like, let's just get real. Like, it was a community tech conference. It wasn't about a product. Like, Salesforce brings like 100,000 people, but it's for Salesforce. Those are all their customers, you know, or like SaaStr. It's about like a specific, this is just like a community reunion. It's crazy we ever did it. It's crazy we ever did it, right? It's really hard to do. And at least for the time being, impossible to do. So we know that tech should be a component of some sort of event, but it shouldn't be the whole thing, right? And so the vision for it is to build Utah's version of South by Southwest. Silicon Slopes puts in the tech piece, so we'll still do Tech Summit. It'll be at the Salt Palace this year. You know, all of kind of everything we love about it with its own kind of tweaks given like where we are will still remain intact, but everything that's good about it will still remain. But we're going to add on these pillars of like culinary, music, film, entertainment. We've partnered with Visit Salt Lake, and they have their whole winter roundup. Where they do this skijoring thing with like horses pulling people on skis doing jumps and stuff. It'll be like a takeover of Salt Lake City and a kind of our version of South by Southwest. And I think that's what's needed. And it's also great for the Silicon Slopes organization, as we've been talking about, to not have to carry that full burden by itself anymore. You know, like that's a crazy burden to carry. It's like we didn't talk about it, but like when I brought Bednar in, like the security that's necessary for some of these things.
Yeah, it's nuts.
The threats you get for some of these things, the amount of money you have to raise. Like Summit, as it was at least $3 million every year, right? And then for the org, you got to raise about like $6 to $7 million a year.
Yeah,
you know, in order to do what Silicon Slopes was doing in 2019 and 2020.
Yeah,
and not that that's not possible, but why kill yourself for things that like others can help with?
Yeah.
They can kind of grab, lock arms with you, and they can benefit from it too. Like, this is greatest for the state of Utah.
Yeah.
you know, like it's kind of interesting that it's a private organization funded by private companies that kind of do this and has done it by itself for so long. But I don't think we need to do it by ourselves anymore.
Yeah.
And I think it can be bigger if we united with other groups.
And I hope that would be my call to other leaders, people listening to this. Like, no one's coming to save us. Like, we have to do it. And, I took an example and the lead from Ryan and Aaron and Josh. That did they do it to also help their own companies? For sure they did. And did it work? Absolutely. But did they also do it for the good of Utah and for the ecosystem? Absolutely as well. And it has felt like there's a little bit of a vacuum as those companies just kind of went through their natural life cycle of kind of just not being at the center of everything anymore. I know I've been excited. I know there's a lot of other people that are getting excited, and that would be my call is like, there's no one coming. It's not up to you. It's not like someone's going to come in and put some endowment in place to keep Silicon Slopes alive. Like, we all have to like pick up a shovel and start working here. And I just want to thank you for what you've done, not just for the last decade, but especially the last couple of years of like kind of like helping Silicon Slopes through a like up and down, rocky, kind of confusing time, at least from my perspective on the outside. And I think it's set up to do really great things. I'm excited to be a part of it. I feel like I'm a product of Silicon Slopes. It wasn't called Silicon Slopes when I started in 2003 and 2004, but it was the network of entrepreneurs that helped me and like taught me business. I didn't know anything. And I think that's what Silicon Slopes still can be for the Adam that's graduating from BYU with absolutely no network, no money, no knowledge. Silicon Slopes can help turn you into an entrepreneur, help your company become known, help introduce you to investors. And I love that that's the focus. That's where it's going. And hats off to you for guiding it here with a lot of big personalities and a lot of opinions around it. So really appreciate everything you've done.
Oh, thanks, man. And it's by the way, it's great to have you on the board. It's so amazing. I love having your voice there and who you are as a leader and bringing that to the table. So thank you for being willing to do that. I think we are on this interesting journey where we're passing the baton, from one generation to another, and we're in the middle of that right now. The great thing about those guys that you mentioned is while they may not be, some of them may not be as engaged in slopes as they have been in the past, they're still all in on Utah. They're all still doing tons of things for you. I mean, I don't know anybody's doing more for Utah than Ryan right now. Josh is super committed, and I think Domo is on an incredible trajectory right now, and like Sconard's on all these various boards and Utah Higher Education and stuff. Like they all really still care, and they're all kind of serving in their own ways. And let's pass the baton to the next generation and have them take it.
Yep. Beautifully said. Thanks, bro.
Thanks, brother.